This is the Astrology and Tarot Show with Jessica Adams.
Thanks, Shane. Here's your psychic astrology for the week beginning Monday, the 26th of January. Your tarot this week can be decoded at jessicaadams.com. Aries, the Three of Wands. Taurus, the Ace of Pentacles. Gemini, the Ace of Wands. Cancer, the Hermit. Leo, the Three of Cups. Virgo, the Emperor. Libra, the World. Scorpio, the Three of Pentacles. Sagittarius, the Lovers. Capricorn, Temperance. Aquarius, the Empress. And Pisces, the Four of Wands. If you have factors in Aries in your birth chart, then your name, your face, your shape, your style, and your identity will take you into a very different world from this week forward for many years into the future. Now, Aries. The local trips that you take regionally, locally, or to neighbouring countries, even very small-scale matters like your car or your use of public transport, will compel you to make changes in yourself and in your life from Easter, and that may be hinted at this week. Maybe Easter or July, August are already in your plans. You can expect new freedom ongoing from local, regional, and neighbouring travel. This Uranus and Gemini cycle, which starts in April, may be twice as powerful if you have Gemini chart factors. So Easter is definitely up ahead. What's hatching isn't just an Easter egg, it's the future of the way that you get around. Uranus and Gemini in the third house, in plain English, is about finding revolutionary, radical, and liberating new ways to get from A to B or sideways across the map. Obviously, there are new inventions all around us, but what's coming is so new that it's probably still on the drawing board. The third house is also very much about your brother, your sister, your cousin, or your neighbour. And this cycle is out of the blue, sudden, like an electrical storm. By June, you'll realise everything has changed really quickly and really suddenly. But you will be set free, or you will find freedom through. This cycle is about freedom from issues with siblings, cousins, or neighbours, or finding freedom and space through these people. Finally, the third house is about the internet, the media, and what happens to you on a personal level from April, which may be in the air at the moment, is very much about the internet itself altering course, AI, artificial intelligence, but it will get you where you live. Taurus. Well, it's good to be optimistic about the future, and you should be thinking about Jupiter in Leo in your home zone after June 30. Where you live and how you live is your key to far better options ahead with a house, apartment, garden, or block of land, maybe alternative residences or even home exchange. And you will get up there too by August if you take the opportunities and solutions which are there in July. If you have anything in Cancer, Taurus, in your birth chart, you should be or you may be planning ahead right now because you can see the way the wind is blowing. Whatever your birth chart looks like, do think about mid-2026. Quite apart from the bricks and mortar, this upcoming July-August cycle, which holds until mid-2027, is primarily about your relationship with your birth family, your parents, your siblings, your relatives, as well as any family that you have created, your partner, your children, and in-laws. So let's go into Jupiter in the fourth house from June 30th in a bit more detail. Jupiter is about expansion and growth. It is about the acorn that becomes the mighty oak. And if you think back 12 years, you planted some acorns then with the household, your family, or real estate. So, for example, you might have taken out a mortgage. What's happening now is that growth is going to skyrocket as you go into July and August if you take the options that are presented to you. If you have issues that you need to resolve with the family, they will be resolved one way or another from July and August. And by the middle of 2027, you should be in a far superior position with the people who are your clan, but also the place that you call home. Gemini. This new career, unpaid work, or academic cycle is about an ending and a beginning at the same time. 2 chapters will close near January 26, then February 14. Neptune is out of Pisces, Saturn is out of Pisces, and that's a big deal in terms of your career, your vocation, or your study. It's probably time to go more deeply into the success and status question. And one way or another, you will be asked to do so twice. In the process, you can come to terms with aspects of your ambition, your position, or your mission that have either been confused or even lost in translation. This cycle is about discovering what will help you keep it real again with your aims, goals, and ambitions. What is suddenly crystal clear after January 26 is really important. So, the end game of Neptune in Pisces in the 10th house is the end of years of randomness. Everything and everybody was all over the place all the time, and occasionally you were out of your depth, looking for an anchor or a lighthouse. What happens after January 26 is historic because you're not going to see the cycle again in your adult lifetime. Unpacking it and also getting over it will take a fair amount of effort from your part, but to live in the real world again is really, really different. Cancer. This past January cycle, ending this week, was about your duet or your duel, your marriage, relationship, partnership on a work level, or your current partnership platonically. The duel may have been about anyone against you, an opponent, rival, or known enemy. And the effects in January were and are the same, no matter whether you were dealing with a dispute or balancing the scales. That January challenge was and is to dig inside yourself for aspects of your personality which make up the other half of the scales with the other person or the other side of the battle. You'll do some stock taking and reviewing this week because of an ending earlier in January or an ending just as January itself comes to pass. So January is going, and so is this cycle. But it does take a long time to move on from years and years of history with Pluto in Capricorn, which for you between 2008 and 2024 meant that power and control questions dominated the two of us, or me versus you. That kind of thing can sometimes feel as if it's going to go on forever because it's such a long cycle. But Pluto is absolutely ancient history now, and the dynamic and what you need to do to balance the scales is completely different. Leo, power and control issues with a partner, your other half, or the other side in a dispute or conflict will require a lot of digging. This partnership or this dispute may be personal, like a marriage. It may be professional or purely platonic. In the meantime, you feel Pluto's big emotions, or you see them in him or her. Try and work through this without creating an ongoing issue about who or what is top dog. Pluto had a dog. He was called Cerberus, and we do associate this transit with the hierarchy, the pecking order, and who is uppermost or down at the time. And yet, this is a waste of time and energy. The highest potential of Pluto in the 7th house is to have a powerful partnership. You may also be aware of that this week, Leo, that the two of you, whoever you are, if you use your self-control, can find that you will share the control as a dynamic duo. If you are in a situation where you are against the other side, whether it is professional or personal, do your utmost to pick your battles because this is a long cycle and Pluto in Aquarius in the 7th house will be there for many years. So you need to keep an eye on what is starting. It will become more obvious as the Sun goes into Aquarius from the last week of January and the Sun and Pluto travel side by side throughout February, in fact, well past St. Valentine's Day, if this is about romance. What you end up doing will be a classic case of Pluto willpower because the willpower that you find is your superpower. Virgo. Well, the planet Neptune now goes into Aries in your chart and your solar 8th house of joint finance and property. Other people's involvement in your money, your house or apartment, your business interests will show you an escape from reality, a holiday from the everyday. A loan may be on very low interest, or the illusion of a credit card that makes you feel as if it really is all yours. There are other examples of holidays from reality. Cryptocurrency is one, and a property bubble is another. Whatever you are dealing with near January 26 needs a bit of thought, though, because from February 14, your chart changes again. Saturn goes into the sign of Aries, into the same chart zone, and that means a waiting game, restrictions, and a heavily ring-fenced situation. These might be tied together. So you may, for example, be getting a mortgage, but it ties you in for 10 years on a home that is your dream home. But of course, it's the bank's as well as yours. That's just one example. And sometimes you get other examples. So there may be one situation which is an escape from the real world, and another situation where it's very much about having boundaries and restrictions in place for at least 2 or 3 years. That can happen too. You do have quite a lot to think about. This double cycle is very new. And over the next week or so, you will have plenty of chances to add up the numbers. Libra. I'm going to talk about foreigners and foreign countries again for the second week, as it's so important in your long-term destiny past the year 2030. Some of you will emigrate, and some of you will take the most important overseas trip for many years. In other cases, it will be foreigners at home, in your town or your city, at work, and so on, who have the biggest impact on you. Uranus in Gemini is showing itself now. It starts in April. It will be with you for years, but this week will show you some signs and clues about the radical changes to come. For those of you who are students, teachers, planning to study or teach, interested in publishing, online or in the traditional book world, there is a double message here that another language or accent will be heavily involved. What happens after April is a revolution. The 9th house, where Uranus in Gemini will liberate you, used to be about sea voyages in the olden days. Now it is about pretty much the last thing you ever expected coming to pass. So even if you don't call yourself a traveler or a tourist, you may emigrate. And even if you thought that you had no capacity for languages, you may well do. What happens after April is very, very different, out of the box, and yet some details this week will be swirling around. It's always a good idea to leave plenty of time and space for what changes, and by July, you'll know about it. Scorpio. Each big new moment that you experience with travel, relocation, study, publishing, and the web will ask you to reject the old game of life that you are playing this week and search for who you really are. You are maybe the optimistic explorer who was never really taken seriously by those who had a narrower point of view. Whether your priority this week is a trip, relocation, foreigners, foreign culture or language, or the world of books or websites. This is a very lucky cycle. Jupiter going through the sign of Cancer in your solar 9th house will only be with you until June 30. So this week it is important that you get your hopes up again, even if they have been flatlining for a bit, and go back to the original vision. Your luck is also in Scorpio. You may have established a relationship with another nationality or country, another culture, another language, which will now come back to you. Your advantage or your trump card is foreign involvement in your life, and you'll start to see that over the next 7 days. Finally, if you do have ambitions with university or college, publishing, or the internet, push all the buttons between here and June 30. Sagittarius. Your ambition, your ideas about what success means to you, and your mission in life will trigger a journey of soul searching in 2026 and result in dramatic changes on your path. Freedom and independence are coming after April. What's happening here is a change between now and April that sets you free. So, for example, you may resign and go into business for yourself, or you may find that there are alterations in your chosen field where you can become more independent. A complete change of position, status, or employment is possible depending on your personal birth chart. So some people do decide to change their hours. They go into hybrid part-time work and study and other variations on the theme. Let's unpack Uranus in Taurus in the sixth house a little bit more. It will be with you until around Easter, and you've had it since 2018. So nothing can really surprise you anymore. What you have learned, though, is that if you serve other people, if you do your duty, if you work for the people, then that sets you free on some level. You have also discovered that new technology or doing it your way, DIY, is the way forward. You have just a few more weeks of that left. Capricorn. Power questions and control issues will be played out with business, money, property, taxation, insurance, pensions, superannuation, and valuables at this time. While Pluto is in your second house in the sign of Aquarius, you also have the arrival of lucky Jupiter from July in your eighth house, which is about joint finance. So family money, for example, an inheritance or a trust fund, and your partnership finances. So, for example, the house or the apartment that you share, or even a business if you're one of those couples. So from July, you get a second chance. Right now, what you're doing is juggling numbers. From July, you have every right to be optimistic, as on June 30th, when Jupiter changes signs, everything starts to look a bit more possible and a lot bigger. If you have so far been looking at the past, you are on track. As 12 years ago, Capricorn, you planted acorns financially or with property or business, which are now ready to become mighty oak trees. An oak is a very precious kind of tree. Whatever you were doing 12 years ago, if you were the right age, will now come back to you. But you are also this week looking at the future quite rightly, because 12 years from now, what you're investing in or planting can also grow. Aquarius. Well, the effect of the big exit of Saturn and Neptune in Pisces from your finance and property zone is going to change everything about the way that you do the numbers. In 2 more weeks, you can also farewell the final part of what you felt was a restriction or a ring-fenced situation, as you have been involved in a waiting game with Saturn in Pisces. At the moment, you probably have experienced so much and known so much that you feel you understand the boundaries issue better than most people. And this may have been boundaries over the years with your bank account, a house or apartment, a will, and so on. The line will be very clearly drawn from January 26. Neptune is gone, and you will finally have a firm grip of what is real and what was always just an alternative to reality. At the same time, from February 14, a waiting game is over, a test of patience is over, and you will be in many ways unshackled. So this is really very new. And the choices that you make about your finances and property in the second half of February are the future. All you really have to do is collect some good karma from the past, or maybe pay back some karma that you haven't yet settled on, and that will take you until July. Pisces. New connections with a brother, cousin, neighbor, or sister are formed all the time in this cycle, which you've had since 2018, and that's putting it politely. What's happened has been quite revolutionary in terms of your sibling, your aunt's son or daughter, the people next door, or the people who are just across the way. At the moment, there is a connection that needs to be rewired with one of these people. If the rewiring is not enough and it needs to be totally replaced, then it can be no later than April, which is when Uranus leaves this sign and this cycle for the rest of your life. So you have a short time here to make sure that you are as free as possible through this person or from them. If an event needs to be completely removed, then it will be, if that's what it takes for you to start again. Remembering what happened and going back to it is not the way with Uranus, which is always the planet of future progress. The core issue here is your independence. So the third house, which has always been associated with cousins, neighbors, and siblings, is about being free, breaking free, doing it your way, and separating yourself if necessary. A complete break with the past is coming for many people born under the sign of Pisces, and it will happen over the next few weeks. If you have anything in Gemini in your birth chart, you can double that message. In fact, what happens after April is nothing short of removing the past and going towards the future with just one priority, which is to have space and autonomy at last. This may mean moving, for example, with a particular neighbour, or just moving on if you have been stuck in a situation with a sibling or cousin, which has meant that you were never very free. If it is personal and you do have Gemini factors in your chart, you might want to draw a tarot card about that. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch up with you next week.